Welcome to Shiny Side Out with
Dave
and Meki on Revolution Radio, broadcasting from Australia for freedomslips.com. We're in the chat room right now on the station's website, so you can chat with us while we are on air, which is actually pretty cool. Or you can listen at home on a Grace Tabletop digital radio. It's a thing. If you missed Solaris's show with Derek Condit, Shungite and energy healing was the topic, and it was actually pretty cool. I caught maybe about half of the show, but I can go back and listen to the other half of the show because it's on the station's archives, and you can do that for any host show, and you just need a subscription, and it's a Patreon $5 a month thing. All right, so do that, get in, done, and then you can listen in the way when it currently used to watching everything and binging it, and that is in our own time. So you do the same thing. Meki and I, we live in Australia, but wherever you are, consider the following, that we acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land. Where I live, it's the Darkinjung. And Meki, where you live?
It's the Rock people.
And we pay our respects to the elders of those groups, those mobs, they're what they're called here, past, present, and future. Oh, Meki, I'm so surprised where we're at. Because, look, we're coming to Christmas, right? Christmas is good. Happy holidays coming up, and Festivus, which Hanukkah, I don't care, right? Because I'm not specifically aligned to any. We do celebrate Christmas in my family, and the kids are now at the age where we had that talk about Santa, and they're just going into one's already in high school, and the other one's coming in next year coming. And do you know what? My partner and I, we considered not having that conversation this time around because we were holding on to the special nature of the gift-giving component, but coming from an anonymous source, right? Well, I'm trying not to say the right words, right, in case it kids listening, because what do you mean? So what we did, we've decided to go the other way, and it's maybe a little cheaper. The items we get aren't large boxes of things anymore. You know what I mean? And
small boxes with expensive insides.
That's where it goes, right? It's less on the big items that were a little, more cost effective. So yeah, it's pretty tough. But Meki, there was a giant spike in the COVID confirmed cases. I mean, giant spike where we'd been hitting, maybe 670,000 or something, and now this massive spike at 1.4 mil in a day. So we've capped off now confirmed cases of 71.7 mil, which is almost the Fibonacci sequence number, but so 71 mil, crazy, like it's going up, and it keeps going up,
and it's not showing any signs of abating, and this is really the issue. Because we spoke about the relative mortality rate, case fatality rate, which we keep talking about, which is sitting at 3%. That's, again, as far as diseases are concerned, that's not really scary. It's not scary. It really isn't. I mean, you got a better chance of being hit by a car, but
it's 3.3% at the moment, the case fatality rate.
Yeah, but the problem, of course, is this, right? 3% on a small population or sample size is not significant, right? But 3% across the global population is extremely significant. And we're talking at that point, tens of millions of people, if not hundreds of millions of people, that could potentially pass away from this. Because the more it spreads, right, the more people get infected, the more people die, not because the case fatality rate rises, but because more people get infected.
That's right. It's the contact patch.
Yeah, and I know we're going to talk about it, but the vaccines, I listened to this really interesting report the other day about the UK vaccines and how they have determined how to vaccinate the people in the UK. They're going, by groups of vulnerability first, who need it most.
Oh, yeah, the priority list, yeah.
Yeah, and by hitting the first 3 groups they have defined, they're hitting something like 80% of potential fatalities.
Oh, the old 80-20 rule.
Yeah. So I don't know if they got there by, if it was on purpose, or if it just, I'm sure they looked at the groups and thought, okay, we'd better do this. But 80-20 just happened, I think, to be the number. But, and the question was asked, what if we had the vaccine right at the start of the pandemic? And then the medical person that was interviewed said, well, if we had the vaccine, then, 80% of the UK's fatalities would not have occurred. Always considering that the vaccine is at least 90% or so effective, right? We're talking here 64,000 people, so 45 to 50,000 people may still be alive or could be alive if. It's only hypothetical, of course. There was no vaccine, so it doesn't matter. But the point is those are the numbers. So, but the problem is this, right? So they're only looking, and this is actually a small percentage of the population. So the 80% that are getting vaccinated, let's say, of the high riskers there, which wouldn't die then, only represent about 20% or 30% of the overall population. So 70% haven't been vaccinated yet, but you've just prevented 80% of deaths. So that's the math, right? So you've given the vaccine to about 30% of the population, but you've prevented 80% of the death. That's pretty good math, right? Now, so the problem, though, and this is what you've always brought up, Dave, which is of course completely correct. Just because you're vaccinated doesn't mean you can't get it, and it also doesn't mean you're not infectious.
It means both of those things, that you can get it, you are still infectious.
You could. So the preliminary tests have shown, though, is that if you were to get it, then you would get a much milder form of the disease. Hence,
just like those, better. Yeah, just like the asymptomatic people.
Yeah.
Because they got the virus and they're contagious, and they didn't have any symptoms or almost nil. Right, that's the plan for getting the vaccine. It isn't to eliminate the virus when it hits you. It just passes through you.
Yeah, and look, this is really what's happening with any vaccine. So any vaccine you get, like smallpox, chickenpox, doesn't matter. You get measles. They give you a disabled or inert version of the vaccine, so your immune system knows what to look for when it hits you. Right? You still get it, and you still might get mildly sick, right? You still have the virus in you, but your immune system can deal with it. That's really what the point of the vaccine is. It lets your immune system deal with it because it's a known. It's like having a computer virus.
If your computer virus,
if your antivirus software knows about it, it can defend it against it. If it doesn't, it can't. Right? It is that simple. Now, the problem is, Dave, that the vaccinations for the larger parts of the population won't be coming in for at least 2 or 3 years.
Yeah.
There's no way anybody's going to be vaccinated. There's no way the majority of the population in the world, even in the United States,
so the people in the middle of the bell curve, Becky.
Yeah, 100%. So travel and all that stuff, even a vaccine passport is. So it means you don't get a bad case of the disease yourself. You get a vaccine passport, that's great. It doesn't protect anybody else, so if you are infectious. So the vaccine passport in and of itself, in my opinion, and I've thought about this quite a bit, is completely useless. So they know you're vaccinated. Okay, that doesn't mean you're immune. It also doesn't mean you don't have it. All right?
Exactly. Exactly my point, right? So what does it mean, though? I think the passport will still be a dead cert. It's going to be a thing anyway, right? But what do they do with you? So will quarantining still be a thing? Probably. If you were to fly back and forth, between countries, we don't have many cases here in Australia. Like, I think there was 5 in total yesterday.
We're lucky.
However, there is still sewage found with the virus in it, which means it's still active and going through our population while we don't have, confirmed cases. It's still there. Hopefully only asymptomatic. And we're going to, fly about if you went to the States and came back again, then you might be putting some other people at risk where the nation hadn't been able to get the vaccine out within the next 2 years to everybody, and some people may still have a negative impact, sure. even if it was 3%, sure. Right, or lower, 2.5, or if you added up the asymptomatic cases, which we're not testing, it could be down to 1.5% or something like that, or less than 1% of the people who actually have a negative impact. Mm-hmm. This is the thing, right? So I think quarantining will still have to happen. It'll still be a thing, but maybe in your own house. Or maybe you can safely go about your business in these groups of the have and have-nots, the people who have been vaccinated, and against those who have, or haven't, sorry. Make sense?
Absolutely. Look, whichever way we slice this, Dave, this is going to be with us for a long time. All right.
And who polices this?
Well, who does indeed? Who does indeed? I think, okay, how can I put this best? Irrespective of whether or not there's a virus or not a virus, or whatever is going on, right? There are definitely people out there dying of something, and if it's man-made or not man-made, I don't think the virus is a hoax, simply because I know a lot of people in the medical field in the United States that are mm-hmm. family members, mm-hmm. cousins of my wife's, etc. And here in Australia, we've got a lot of family friends that are in the medical profession. So the virus is real enough as far as I know, right? And if somebody can send me proof positive that it isn't, I'm very happy to entertain it and air it here. But as far as I know, there is a virus and various strains of it out there. Mm. Okay, so, but ultimately, it is really important to understand that this thing is not in control. And let's say Biden gets to power and Trump gets out, doesn't mean the virus is going to go away. Okay, Trump is not responsible for the virus any more than anyone else, right? He's doing the best he can, I'm sure. And then when Biden magically comes in, that doesn't mean that all of a sudden the virus is going to disappear. So we are still. And if I look at the numbers, Dave, this is what worries me. Because people think, oh, no, it's all good now. We're getting the vaccine, this and that. We can do whatever we want. Well, no, not really. There's 16.5 million people that tested positive in the States, and 305,000 have died in the United States alone. 305,000 of your fellow citizens. That's insane.
There's some large numbers.
Every day, more people die from this thing than in the 9/11 attacks.
That's
every
right.
Day in the States, just in the States.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so I don't know. It's a thing, Dave. It's worrying me.
I've made the point before, and I continue the same thing. If there was someone walking down the street with an automatic weapon, I won't brand it. Just that's what they've got, and they were killing this many people, you'd want to stop it. You just would, even if they were only targeting the elderly or the people who had other symptoms, other diseases, which would make them susceptible. Mm-hmm. Doing the job of the virus, you'd still want to stop it, even if it didn't happen in your town, and even if you didn't believe it because you didn't know anyone that was one person from an affected person. Then deny it all you like, it would still be happening. And this is the thing. Mekki and I, nearly 10 years, right, been doing this, and I see the greatest amount of people who refuse to believe something are geographically separated from the outcome enough for it to make it a reasonable expectation in their minds that it isn't real. And that's all it takes to deny something. And look, I don't have a hard time with that because, I don't live where that school is over in I'm not even going to say the words, in the US. It's kind of very beach-like. It's sandy is the beginning.
I was actually there. Anyway, but yes, it's nice. It's nice.
Yeah. So, I cocould say that I could deny it existed, right, just because it wasn't there. So anyway, Mekki, I'm just going to say, I want this to keep rolling. So the The vaccine is alive and well. It's getting given out by
all three of them, I think.
Yeah. So I've got that the UK issued a warning to its own people as they're rolling through this, and it was the Medicines and Healthcare Products Regulatory Agency in Britain issued a warning for people with allergies not to use the Pfizer COVID-19 vaccine because of its side effects. And I've got the story up, but I didn't think the story was enough, so I actually found the special warnings and precautions for use on the actual government's website, the regulatory, or whatever it was, the Medicines and Healthcare, blah, 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 right? I think it's MHRA. Is there what's it called? You know what I'm saying. So
yeah, I'm with you.
Yeah, thank you. I tried to say anagram, so no, that's not it. Okay, and it states any person with a history of immediate onset anaphylaxis to a vaccine, medicine, or food should not receive the COVID-19 mRNA vaccine, and then it has a part number, BNT162b2. A second dose of the same thing. Wow. What's that?
And this came from Do It Bird. Just for it. Later.
Okay, so
sorry, Do It Bird. I just forwarded your message today.
Yeah, it's like, wow, what's this thing? Did it detect me talking about the vaccine and bring this thing up? No. Okay, so the second dose should not be given to those who, if they presented any side effects to the first dose, you shouldn't give them the second one. And then it goes on to say that, just in case of any rare anaphylactic events, that you should still use the same precautions. And that's the same precautions that occurs with any flu vaccine jab. We call it the jab in Australia. If you get that, then there's still the same precautions are there. One of my friends is a vaccination nurse. She's a registered nurse and she does vaccinations. And while I haven't had this conversation with her, she'd be horrified that I'd be talking about a negative impact to a virus because they don't. It's hard enough as it is, and it doesn't need bad press, to be honest. But as an outcome of Queensland's research falling through, Australia has declared or deferred its declaration of approval for its use of vaccines. So it's stayed at arm's length, to be honest, with the vaccine, while Britain's gone headlong into it. This is the thing that I've noticed is we follow pretty closely behind the others. I think we're keeping a keen eye out for what's going on. But a story came up the other day, and it's the third of them. And this is in Austrian Parliament, December 12th, just during the week, yesterday. An Austrian parliamentarian member exposed the defectiveness of the government's COVID-19 tests by demonstrating in the parliament how a glass of Coca-Cola tested positive for COVID-19. And then a fan of the show, a friend of ours, Meki, he also reminded me of the pawpaw and also a goat who was also tested positive to the PCR test. And just so everyone can grab from the screen what they need to be able to find that video, it's also in the text below, the comments below, all right, when we post the video up online. I didn't know a Coca-Cola would do it. Could you imagine those people sitting in the queue, Mackie, waiting to be tested, who were drinking a glass of Coke, and they take the swab. It was a particularly bubbly one. It got up their nose, and then they got tested for it, and it was positive. And they went, hey, but I really was only here as a precaution.
Take the other spin on it, just for a second.
Go on. Yeah.
What if they laced everything with it? Oh, crazy talk now, Maggie.
Yeah, I thought that too. I've been thinking about this for weeks since I had my test.
Yeah. So this is the two things, right? Or actually three things. First thing, I watched The Walking Dead, quite a bit. I'm a big fan of The Walking Dead. The latest one, well beyond that, I don't know. But anyway, in season 2 or 3, it became clear that everybody had it. Like if you died or got bitten by a zombie, actually they're called zombies in the show, you would turn into a Walking Dead because everybody had the virus, which we now learn is actually spaceborne, whatever. Secondly, I also do not believe that this is a coincidence. I don't think this virus just appeared, this COVID-19 thing. I don't think so. The timeline that Dave and I have been talking about now for a long time, and that I've been, I guess, promoting with the hypothesis, I arrived at. I never said that I wanted it. Right? I just told people this is what I think is going to happen. These are the calculations I've undertaken, and based on the history that we've discussed with you over the last 10 years, etc., this is the best extrapolation of an event we can come up with. And unfortunately, we were right on the money. Right on the money. And not only that, I also said repeatedly, and you might remember this: the best bang for your buck is a biological agent. If you were going to do something like this, it'll be a virus. It'll be bacterium. It won't be chemical. It won't be nuclear, right? It's too messy. This is cheaper. It's by far the cheapest way to do this. And so I don't think this is a coincidence at all. I don't think this just unfortunately happened, this pandemic. I think it's an engineered event. It's an engineered event on many fronts. And today we're going to talk about the Great Reset as well later on in the second show part. And we're going to talk about what that means and why we're talking about it right now. And we're talking about it right now because of the virus, the pandemic. That's what we're talking about, the Great Reset. It's just another thing that the Davos Forum has been trying to bring us for a long time. So number one, I think we all have it. I think it is laced in a lot of things around us. I really believe that. Number two, it is not a coincidence. And number three, this will be with us for a very, very long time, because we won't be able to deal with it. Okay, that's my opinion. And it will affect the greater part of the global population. Right now we're at 71 odd cases that, like Dave said, globally. That's the ones we've confirmed as a test. There they are. Great. And the thing is this, Dave, this thing shows no signs of slowing down. None. Zero.
The virus.
Yeah. If anything, this is speeding up. And look,
at no time since the beginning of the virus has it declined.
No, never declined. and I don't want to be a doomsayer either. But look, let's see the effect of the vaccines, such as they are. Will there be side effects? Yes. Should we take the vaccine? That's something you have to make up for your own. This is the first vaccine. Okay, so this is unprecedented. I need to explain this to everybody as well, Dave. This is important to understand. So I'm not an anti-vaxxer. I'm vaccinated. My children are vaccinated with the normal stuff,
Likewise.
The MMR stuff. So it's just what it is. Because I grew up in a time when I still saw polio cases. Anyway, the point is,
we had a kid in with all that the mechanical stuff around his body. Yeah, it was terrible.
But the point is, so I'm not an anti-vaxxer, right? I do understand, though, and this is something that everybody needs to understand. Vaccines are not inherently safe, but it's a triage question, right? If I vaccinate 1 million people, 1,000 might have an adverse effect, 100 might die because of the vaccine. Is that a fact? Yes, it's something that could happen, 100%. But if I didn't vaccinate the 1 million people, then maybe 200,000 people might die or be really badly affected. So it's a triage question, and you choose the lesser evil.
That's
what
right.
you do, right? But with this thing, Dave?
No, please
right.
Keep going.
So with this thing, we have never ever attempted, number one, to vaccinate as many people in such short a time as we have with this on a global scale.
From start to finish. Yeah.
Never been done. That's why we're coming up to all bottlenecks, all kinds of, the little ampoules. We don't have enough of those, not enough cold storage facilities, both for transport and for storage. And it's a nightmare, logistically speaking, right? But whatever. I guess somebody could solve it. You throw enough money at it, you can solve it. But the problem is we have never, ever, ever not tested something
so
for
ferociously.
any length of, so well, we have never, and see this testing regime is very short. Yes, it's fairly large sample size, but we don't know the long-term effects. Longitudinal means long-term, right? We don't know the long-term effects of this thing. We don't. I mean, we've now seen a couple of people who were allergic to the one in Queensland that was developed there, but we don't know what the long-term effects are. We have no idea. This is completely new, and it was rushed through the process. And it's not only the one, Dave. There are three or four now, I think. Right, so but not only that, three of them are similar, and there is certain similar methodology, and the fourth one is a completely different methodology and process of creation. That's why it doesn't need the freezing or the
however
cold temperature.
It's because it's a full cell. It's not just mRNA.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and its mechanism and deployment is 100% different.
Yeah,
and it goes, I think, too drastic a step. I think the mRNA is sufficient in getting our bodies to react to something. The post-plasma injection of someone who's had the virus and has antibodies isn't sufficient, and that they've tried everything. But Mackie, the spike protein for coronavirus is how its mechanism of being able to attack us. Detecting that rather than the virus RNA in the middle of the virus, which is its payload. It's smart just to do the spike protein, because this could make us truly immune to all of the coronavirus family.
Well, potentially, which means common cold and flu, right?
Yeah, but we could be sterile at the same time. We could have so many. I had to tie it back to you. We could have so many different side effects. Maybe just on a certain day, you buy an appliance cheap, right? That it just up and dies like a day after the warranty experience it ends.
And this is really the danger, right? Because this has never been done before. And whenever you hear this has never been done before, your ears should prick up.
Zombies.
Well, you know what?
What's that Will Smith movie, Mackie, where he's I Am Legend? I'm Legend. It was based on the Omega Man back. But yes, the single survivor, or supposedly single survivor of a. That person made a medication to give to everybody, and
it cured cancer. Yeah.
Yeah, and then suddenly they're all in zombies, right? They did cure cancer. Those zombies didn't get any more cancer.
Well, there were zombies. What happened? The retrovirally engineered medicine actually induced a certain evolutionary pathway in its hosts, which turned them into monster creatures, like vampire-like creatures. They weren't zombies. They're actually monster creatures. Anyway, it doesn't matter. The point is, could it happen here? It's 2020. Sure.
Zika virus, Mackie.
Yeah,
Zika virus. It reeks of Zika virus, Mackie. Remember that? So they made billions of mosquitoes with a very short life that were only old enough to be able to procreate, and then died before birthing. So it basically, ended a generation of mosquitoes, but in exactly the same location for our new listeners that these mosquitoes were released, the Zika virus appeared at the same time. Mm-hmm. So what are we doing here by rushing it through? Is there a thing? What if we don't get the vaccine, Mackie, and the second strain of this thing, like a real second strain, not second wave, second strain comes through that's 100 times more deadly?
Well,
and it just wipes out all those people that never got the thing in the first place, the vaccine, right? So you've got to weigh all this up. I think if you're making an informed decision, I think that it would be, prudent to observe what happens to the 80% that are getting it first ahead of you, and then to make your own judgment.
By the time it comes to you, and this is probably most of our listenership, unless you're special needs case, like in a special case that puts together, you will probably have a year or two to observe the effects of the vaccine. Now, I don't think that's long enough, in my opinion. But it's better than just having jabbed something into you that, well, we didn't really test very well. Thank you very much. Because
the companies that we talked about indemnity last week, the companies are saying, "Hey, it's all too quick."
Yes.
The manufacturer is saying it's too quick.
Yeah. So if it were immediately deadly, like if it was fatal to the human system in large quantities, we would notice by now, right? Of course, that would have come out. Mm-hmm. But what it does to you over the course of 5, 10, 15, or 20 years, we have no idea.
Oh, we're never going to know that.
Yeah, well, probably not. How it will react with other medications or whatever else happens out there in the world, we just don't know, right?
Yeah.
I mean, should you take it? Okay, CFR 3%. What category are you in? Are you over 50? Are you obese? Do you have an underlying health condition? Are you frail? Are you elderly? Whatever, right? If these things are, weighing on your mind, then maybe you should. If you're young and healthy, being young and healthy doesn't stop it from really hitting you bad. It doesn't. Chances are less, though, right? So, right. I don't know.
I'm going to make another parallel, Mickey. How's this one? B ship. The A ship and the B ship, if that rings any bells. So the B ship was the one that was filled with hairdressers, middle management.
Straight into the sun. Telephone cleaners.
Your telephone cleaners, that's right. So that's funny. So they sent us first. They sent them first just to get rid of them. If you're giving this vaccine immediately to the most susceptible, is this a cleansing? I don't know. I'm only asking a question. Even though it's preposterous, because the intentions are good, the outcome that Meki's talking about here with that longitudinal view we don't have, that we don't have this over 10 years. We don't know what's going to happen. Yes, mate?
You said preposterous, right? And I gotta dial everybody back here to reality.
Pull me up on it.
No, it's. I don't think it's preposterous at all, and I'll tell you why. Okay, so just recently, and look, I grew up in Germany, and I moved to Australia when I was 19, and so I visited, concentration camps, etc., etc. The point I'm trying to make here is this, though. I watched Schindler's List today, or part of it anyway, with my wife. She'd never seen it before. She goes, "This is horrendous. This is terrible." Now, if you've watched Schindler's List and you understand history, then you know what Schindler's List shows you is but a fraction of the horror, and not it's sanitized horror, if you will. Right?
Yeah,
it's bad, but it's sanitized. It's nowhere near the worst of what happened, but that happened 70, 80 years ago, not very long ago. Okay, and some people are still alive that lived through it. Now, when the medical findings came to light that the Third Reich, the Nazi regime, had gathered. In the experiments on I guess human beings, and the U.S. Surgeon General was presented with the findings. I think it was he at the time. He said, "No, I can't use this. This is completely unethical." No. So off he went, and they found a new Surgeon General who was quite happy to use all that data, right? Because the data was there. Because the reasoning was, well, the data is there anyway, so you might as well use it, right? No matter how it was gotten.
Yeah.
So. And to be very clear, human beings can do things that are unbelievable to each other on an industrial scale.
Atrocious.
We've proven this.
Yeah.
We know this. This is no different, Dave. If somebody were to do this with a certain specific, and you put Agenda 21 there in the chat, and with a certain agenda in mind, call it 21 if you want, then it would happen. It could happen very easily. And in fact, it wouldn't even be very hard to keep a secret because it's compartmentalized. You don't know what this person does, and you don't know what the other person does, and they don't know what you do. Everybody does their bit. Everybody does their bit, and the trains are running on time to Auschwitz. It's all good, right? As long as we all do our bit. And so it is not far-fetched. It is not preposterous. Is it likely? On that scale, it is not impossible. But I don't think at this point I will say it is not very probable. But it's definitely possible. So yeah, no.
So just to elaborate on the Agenda 21 that I put into our private chat, by the way, and I can't get into the chat room by the Meki either.
Oh, you can't?
No, I hit the thing that said don't remember what's going on in an attempt to get back in, and I can't. It won't let me back in anywhere. Not even if I go just purely to Chatsy. So I'll still work on it during the week. Agenda 21's ideal. Like the goal is 500 million on the Earth. We have 7.7 billion. If if you had to try and enact that somehow by 35, I think, is that whatever it is, the only way to achieve it is to touch everybody. Because how can you, reduce the population that much unless you're able to touch every person? So every time an opportunity comes up to touch everyone on the planet, I have to have my alarm bells going on.
Oh, absolutely.
Right? It's just my little safety thing, right? Some people, Becky, as we spoke about in another show, that you can have an abject fear of something that you've never encountered. How, you may ask? Genetically. You can have fears, the fear object, the thing that you've been programmed to fear, passed down to you through your DNA from an ancestor. That experiment they did with mice, Mickey, remember?
Yeah.
Right?
Well, there's definitely genetic memory. We've established that.
There is, and it's very small. It can't be a big payload, but it's enough for someone to have a fear about a seemingly irrational fear. But that fear is the thing that you would pass to a generation that would then have its own encounters, and that fear should save its life kind of fear. If that person decided to, if their makeup decided to generate that and place that in the box like a time capsule for the next the next generation, it would be something life-changing. It either saved you. This is what you hear first before you run. This is the thing that you've got to watch out for. This is the food you don't eat. Those kind of simplest of things. That's got to be on the list, right? And right now, when I look at how, if Agenda 21 was to play out, we've all been warned in advance, right? Everything's around Georgia Guidestones. For one, the Agenda 21 paper that they put out so that they're describing what they're going to do. It's already there. It's just, it's like watching dominoes. At some point, the first domino has to start going. And this is just a matter of time before we see the first action of a loss of 7.2 billion people. Or thereabouts. Right? Because it's not these aren't my numbers. I'm not doing it. I've got nothing. I've got no connection to it. I'm just hoping just to be, those chosen few. I want the golden ticket, at the end. Don't know what's going to happen. But whatever happens, if you can identify something in advance of it occurring, maybe that could save your life. So this is what preppers do, Mickey. They have everything ready. They've had a reason to start hoarding food. They feel it's necessary to be safe to do all this. So I'm going to take this, unless you've got an extra point.
Go.
Okay. I'm going to take this as the world's worst segue into by announcing it makes it into the next story, which is the US election. And I wanted to start initially with something with a quote that you'll hear in a second. But look, apparently, to me, this is my personal opinion from what I'm observing from another country, by the way. You living within the country may have a different view. Certainly, if you are a mainstream media watcher and you enjoy CNN, it's been your guide since 2001. You may have evolved the ability to like their programming, and I haven't. I try to stay a step away from all of their emotional connectivity and watch them for what they are and understand the slant. Mackie does the same thing, and I hope that our listeners are using their skills to be able to see what is real and what isn't real, what identify the slant on the same story, right, from two different outlets. Because to me, the whole system looks like it's bought. That people are owned, or they live in fear of the body count. There's hashtag bodies, right? As it seems to me that they are invested enough to see that nothing happens with the election. Like, there is only one outcome. The outcome's already determined now in the media. The media has already called the winner, despite their, being examples and testimony, and and I don't even want to use the name of the person, but let's say, like, the silence of the word Soros in the media. And if you're interested in finding out what that means, just look for it. You'll find a YouTube clip of a guest on a news network who, it's probably 20 seconds of awkward silence as the presenters don't know what to do because the person brought up the topic and said, we really need to talk about it. And then they're madly listening to their little earpiece telling them, oh, bro, really? Well, try and stop him from talking about it, but don't say the words. And they try to back it. He goes, well, that's really not a topic we're interested in finding out more about. So can you tell me more about this? And the guy goes, no, we really have to do it. And they turn him off. So last week, we brought you the video evidence. I showed you a link to it, and I brought that up on the screen so you could see it. I wasn't going to share it. That proves that the process was intentionally bypassed. That's what the video shows. From all the people who worked there, and it's their jobs to observe it, the laws and rules are made, legislated, that a certain process must be undertaken, and that wasn't adhered to. Now, I thought that was enough. Sadly not. Texas, Meki's got some input here, but Texas was talk about it being able to sue other states, but they couldn't. Meki, can you elaborate?
Oh, no, look, essentially what happened was that Texas said, because the federal election obviously affects all the states, they wanted to have I think it was 4 or 5 states where Biden won, they didn't want counted because they alleged that there was widespread voter fraud. That was not entertained by the Supreme Court. A few other things were also not entertained by the Supreme Court. The Trump administration, or Donald Trump himself, President Trump, has now run out of legal cases he can bring. He still has a congressional process or way to, not nullify the election, but certainly cast doubt on it and have forestall Biden from being installed. But that runway is getting shorter and shorter. But my point today on this whole thing was this. So in order for all of this to work, let's say there was voter fraud. Let's say there was millions of votes that came in illegally, surreptitiously, they were counted without any proper oversight, etc., etc. Let's say that's the case for a second here. Now, no matter what anyone else says, and we've got a little quote here as well from the director of Fulton County elections in where this was meant to have happened, the video that is, and Dave will talk about that. Now, if that is all true, it's completely irrelevant what that director says, completely irrelevant what anyone says. If there's a piece of evidence that shows a certain thing, it'll be admitted to the court, and the court will look at it, and they will rule on whether or not you've got a case. And once they rule that you have a case, then you can go and bring your case. But it never got that far. The cases were all thrown out. So if the evidence was real, right? I'm not saying either way because I don't know. It could have been fake, could have been real. Doesn't really matter at this point. The court does not recognize it. Now, that means either it was in fact fake or, right, they're all in on it. But that means that all the judges, like virtually all the judges, including all of the Supreme Court judges, are in on it. Not only that, the funny thing is this: most of the Supreme Court judges in the United States, the majority of them now, have been appointed by Republicans, including Trump himself, and before the Bush father and son. And only the minority now has been appointed by the Democrats. So it's odd that the Supreme Court, which you could argue, owes its allegiance. Well, I mean, it shouldn't really work that way, but this is reality, hello. To the Republicans has ruled against the Republicans in this case. So that either means that they also are in on it, right? Or there is no case to answer. Or and this is where I'm living,
Mm-hmm.
and none of it actually matters. This is just a red herring to keep us occupied. Why do I say that? Well, I'll tell you what. Whether Trump or Biden or, Joe Smith that runs deli stores, President of the United States, is completely irrelevant. In fact, it doesn't even matter who runs Russia or China. None of this matters, not at a fundamental level. All of the decisions on how we run our lives, all the deep things that affect ourselves, our educational systems, our history, what we believe truth is, all of those things, right? What gods we believe in fact, they've all been already predetermined by what people refer to as the deep state. And the deep state I'm talking about is much deeper than the deep state that people refer to when they talk about the United States. I'm talking about the deep, deep state that is running the world. And again, this is going to be part of the short cycle. We're going to start with you in the second hour. We're going to look at the Great Reset. We're going to look at the 9 unknown men. We're going to look at who actually runs the world. We're going to look at who actually runs the world, because that is really critical to understand, especially in the context of the Great Reset, and who benefits and who doesn't. And to that end, we've brought you some analyses from varying journalists. Some of you might know, some of you might not know. They're very interesting, and the things they say are very interesting, right? And so we will highlight the things that you should really look out for when we share these analyses with you. But ultimately, it doesn't matter if Trump or Biden win. Who cares? It's irrelevant. It really is. And again, I say this again. In a country of 300 million people, 300 million people, Biden and Trump are the best choices there, really. Now think about that for a second, right? Putin. No, but see, this is the beautiful thing about Putin. Or even Jiming, is it? No, not Jiming. I forget the Chinese leader's name.
Xi Jinping.
Xi Jinping, that's it. Xi Jinping, that's it. They don't make any... there's no excuses. I'm here for life. Fuck. Sorry. Far out. Far out.
Far out.
We are here. We are here to rule for life. Putin is there for life. He finds a way to stay in power. The Chinese leader, Jinping, he's got no, he's got no intention to abdicate either. They didn't, at least didn't lie about it.
He changed the rules so he could stay in power forever.
And then I'm sure Donald Trump would like to do the same thing. But the point is, it doesn't matter, because none of these people are actually really in power. None of them. Neither Putin, nor Trump, nor
because there's a whole layer above them that's making the decisions.
It's like a Fabergé egg, right? And the problem, of course, is that you never get to the center of it ever.
Not a Fabergé egg. The other one.
The Russian babushka.
The Russian dolls, yeah.
And you will never get to the last one, because it's completely elusive. The system, and I know it sounds wishy-washy, but that's how the system was set up. So I believe truly that 9 people, I'm not saying that's the number, but 9 people would be enough to effectively rule, govern, or whatever you want to do, this planet. That's all it would take. If you have the system built up properly, which we have. All our systems, Dave, are completely pyramidal in structure. Completely.
Oh yeah, absolutely, 100%. And I'm looking at you, Davos Group now. See, here is this. This is thanks, Becky, very much for it being. That's really informative, right? And from a frontline person's perspective, which is sometimes what I feel that I bring to the show. That this perspective, because I've got a unique connection. I used to work for a union. I know how the people are. I know why businesses are how they are, and there's a disconnect between the frontline people and the way a business operates. Usually, unless it was started up from the ground up. But anyway, this is the thing. This is why I've lost all trust in the integrity of the system that we live in. And remember, it's okay. I'm still within the box talking about the things inside the box. This is what the Fulton County Elections Director, Richard Barron, told the Board of Registrations and Elections during Friday's hearing, was that he had not seen the video, but his staff told him that the footage showed normal activity. And that was it. That was him saying, I've recertified yet again, the election results, nothing's wrong. That's plausible deniability. He didn't see the video. His staff told him. I mean, it's not that much to watch, right? And yet he didn't have the time to that, even though he had to attend the hearing on the video, the topic of it. But I didn't watch it. So this is the kind of thing. And now I'm going to move on because I think we've only got a few minutes, and the last one I really want to talk about. And we don't do very much of this at all. But this is the space weather that we had a solar flare occur. And the solar flare was unleashed by the sun exactly in our direction. It became like a corona around it. And when it happened on the 10th, and the space wind increased from 472 to 560 kilometers per second. So it went up, nearly 100 kilometers per second, and nearly doubled the proton density. I've been watching too many medical things. From 9 to 19, and that is protons per cubic centimeter. And doesn't sound like much, but the animation shows the approximate position of our magnetopores, that's the orange line, through the bombardment. Now, the Carrington event, this magnetopores broke a hole in the front and allowed that energy to come in contact with the Earth's surface, and it caused a whole bunch of geomagnetic problems for everyone. And it was a reasonably light coronal mass ejection, CME, but it was a direct hit, and it wasn't the kill shot. And I was waiting for, obviously all the people, was it Ed Dames and his team have seen the kill shot and have talked about it, and it's a thing. Just when, we don't know. And it is just a matter of when. And we'll be going into a solar cycle right now, which is the beginning of this 11-year solar cycle, which we are already maxed on this first one already at the beginning, going into the first few months. So it might be a tough time. We might be going through something pretty hideous, and keep your information radios open to knowing more about it. This is actually the Bureau of Meteorology in Australia. It's their own website. They can show you this, but there are other sources, the NASA sources as well, which you can see the satellites. When the satellite giving you the feed goes offline, then we know we got some problems. Because, it could wipe out all electrical equipment everywhere by generating... electronic. Yes. But even... remember, it arced the telegraph units, right? So anything that's electrical can blow. It's by generating power inside the system enough to and our stuff doesn't like that kind of thing these days. So good luck. Anyway, there's the break. Yep. There's the break. We'll catch you on the other side of the break. It's only a very short break, and take care. And if you're watching the stream, we have to dump the stream and start a new one. All right? Take care, everyone. See you soon.